They won't scream, they won't strike, they won't even need to lie outright. The most dangerous ones, those cloaked not in black robes but in borrowed innocence, will dismantle your name using only shadows. You won't even realize it's happening, not at first, because it never begins with war. It begins with warmth, a compliment here, a curious glance there, a shared story wrapped in vulnerability, just enough to make you believe you're safe. And then the shift, the subtle theft of your truth. Your kindness becomes suspicion, your strength becomes threat, and the world, it watches confused as the lines blur. You'll try to explain, but no one listens to the villain's version of the tale. That's the brilliance of their craft, not in fire, not in curses, but in silence, in distortion, in the art of turning your light into proof that you were always the monster hiding in plain sight. This is how they do it, one tactic at a time. They weaponize your kindness. It begins with your kindness. That's what they see first, not as a gift, but as an opening, a flaw, a weakness. You thought kindness was your strength. You wore it like armor, believing it made you invincible in a world that forgets how to care. But to them, the ones who craft illusions and bend reality to their liking, your kindness is clay in their hands. They study the way you give, not to appreciate it, but to measure how far they can stretch your mercy before it snaps. They don't need to raise their voice or show their hand. All they have to do is lean into your compassion, and suddenly you're carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. Every time you let something slide, every time you forgive a wound too deep, every time you lower your guard in the name of love or loyalty, they mark it, not with gratitude but calculation. Then the shift. They begin to twist your intentions, the warmth you offered. Now they say it suffocated them. The patience you gave, they call it manipulation. That time you stayed up all night, talking them through their fears. Suddenly they never asked you to. And the worst part, they use your words, the very ones you spoke with honesty, as bricks to build a story where you are the villain. It's slow, deliberate. They don't need to scream that you're the enemy. They simply see doubt not in your mind, but in everyone else's. A sly comment here, an awkward silence there. I know they mean well, but that's all it takes. The poison is planted, and because you are kind, you start questioning yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe you did come on too strong. Maybe your boundaries weren't clear enough. So you apologize. For things you never did. For intentions you never held. You shrink, trying to make them comfortable. And as you do, they grow louder, more certain, more convincing, until the story is no longer about what they did to you. It's about what you've supposedly done to them. This is not an accident. It's not confusion. It's a tactic, a deliberate transformation of your character, done quietly, efficiently. Why would anyone suspect the kind one? Why would anyone believe the gentle one could become a villain? That's the magic. That's the trap. They don't fight your darkness. They repurpose your light. And by the time you realize you're being cast as the villain, the audience has already taken their seats, waiting to see how your downfall unfolds. They rewrite the past in silence. They don't need to scream to destroy you. They only need silence. The kind that lingers in the room long after you've left. The kind that tightens its grip when your name is mentioned. Witches like these do not cast spells in the traditional sense. They manipulate memory. They reshape the past not with fire or words, but with omission, with pauses, with selective forgetfulness. Suddenly, moments that once bonded you become cloudy in the minds of others. I don't remember it that way, they'll say, their voice soft, almost uncertain, yet laced with enough doubt to tilt the story. They won't accuse you directly. No, they let others fill in the gaps. They let the silence speak for them, because silence, when paired with a well-timed glance or a hesitating sigh, is more believable than any accusation. The past becomes a battlefield, but you're the only one who remembers the war. To everyone else, the timeline has changed. You'll recall the time you defended them, protected them, gave them parts of yourself you could never replace. And yet when those memories resurface, they treat them like fiction. As if you invented your loyalty, as if your sacrifices were imagined. They'll never call you a liar. That would be too obvious. Instead, they feign confusion. Are you sure that happened? Maybe you're just remembering it differently. And with those simple phrases, they plant a seed of self-doubt not just in you, but in anyone who ever witnessed your truth. This is how they rewrite history, not by erasing the pages, but by smudging the ink. They distort just enough to make the narrative unstable. And while you're busy defending what really happened, while you're trying to gather evidence of your own sincerity, they've already moved on, charming new listeners, painting new portraits of themselves, where you play the villain in the background. A blurred figure who once hurt them, once changed, once became controlling or toxic, never with specifics, never with facts, just feelings, delivered carefully and quietly, so they can always claim innocence. And here's the cruelty: you'll begin to question your own mind. If no one else remembers what you did it even happen? That's the final piece of the spell. You begin to rewrite yourself. You shrink from your own story, terrified of speaking up because your truth now feels dangerous. Unstable, alone, and that's exactly where they want you, trapped in a version of reality they designed, one silence at a time. In the end, they don't need to ruin your reputation with lies. They simply bury the truth deep enough that it starts to rot in your own chest. They isolate you with applause. They don't pull people away from you with chains. They do it with claps, with smiles, with just enough celebration to keep you distracted while they slowly erase every hand that once reached out for yours. It's a brilliant performance, one that begins with admiration. They praise you, loudly, publicly, even affectionately. You think you're being honored. You think you're safe in their orbit. But behind the scenes, they're rearranging the stage, removing anyone who might notice the truth. This isn't praise, it's a curtain, a distraction. While you're basking in their approval, your connections begin to vanish. Not all at once, of course. That would be too obvious. It happens gradually, like a room getting darker by the minute, and no one realizing until it's pitch black. They make you believe you're the center of something grand. They build you up, but only to contain you. They cheer you on, but only when you're walking the path they chose for you. And the moment someone questions their role in your life, that person becomes toxic, jealous, negative, not because they are, but because they see what you don't. So, slowly, you're pulled away from anyone who dares to speak light into your darkness. The isolation isn't through threats, it's through subtle, consistent redirection. A tilted comment, a suggestion to watch out for someone, an implication that you're better off without them. And because it's wrapped in praise, you don't resist. You nod. You agree. You begin to believe that cutting others off is your idea. And when you finally look around, there's no one left but them. The room they clapped for you in is now empty. The applause still echoes, but it's hollow, artificial, and suddenly you realize that every voice that once called you back to yourself has been silenced. Not by force, but by strategy. You were isolated not through punishment, but through celebration. That's the deception. That's the artistry. Because now you have no one to turn to when the mask slips. No one who remembers who you were before the stage lights blinded you. You're alone in a crowd of echoes. And if you try to speak up, if you dare to say that something feels wrong, you'll be told how loved you are, how supported, how admired. They'll smile and say, "But look how far you've come," as if you're ungrateful for questioning it, and so you stay, silent, confused, hoping someone out there remembers the sound of your real voice. Because the truth is, they didn't isolate you with cruelty. They did it with admiration. They clapped until you couldn't hear your own instincts, and by the time you realized it wasn't love, it was control. The audience had already left. They play victim so masterfully, You doubt yourself, they don't confront. They collapse, not in chaos, but in carefully curated breakdowns. And when they play the victim, they do it with such heartbreaking precision that even you begin to question if you were ever the one bleeding. This is the brilliance of their game. They don't need to prove that you're cruel, they just need to convince the world that they are wounded. And they do it not with facts, but with feelings. Trembling hands, trembling voice, half-finished sentences. They drip with vulnerability, not because they are broken, but because they know you are built to protect broken things. And just like that, the roles reverse. You, the one who stayed up night after night calming their storms, are suddenly the thunder. You, the one who sacrificed your peace to bring them safety, are suddenly the threat. They never scream, "Look what they did to me." No, that would be too direct. Instead, they let others come to that conclusion on their own. All it takes is a whisper of sadness, a distant stare, a story with just enough truth to be believable, but just enough distortion to bury yours. They plant it carefully, not for you to hear, but for others to carry. And soon you're no longer the person who tried. You're the reason they cry, the reason they don't feel safe, the reason they lost themselves. They steal your voice and cry with it. And worse, you start to believe it, because they don't accuse you in front of everyone. They wait until you're alone. That's when the real performance happens. They'll say things like, "You've changed," or "You make me feel small." And you, being who you are, will search yourself first. You'll question your tone, your words, your silence. You'll run through conversations again and again, wondering where you went wrong. And every time you try to explain your side, you sound defensive. You sound harsh, and that's the final twist. They make your truth sound like the crime. It doesn't matter how much you've given. It doesn't matter how much you've bled for them. The moment you set a boundary, the moment you stand tall instead of bending, they break on cue, and the world sees the tears, not the trigger. They'll tell others they felt controlled, manipulated, or emotionally unsafe, words that carry weight yet float without evidence. And no one will ask questions, because when someone cries convincingly enough, the truth doesn't need to stand trial. The performance is enough to condemn. So you go quiet. You withdraw, not because you're guilty, but because you're exhausted. That's the goal, not to defeat you with rage, but to drown you in doubt, to make you question your own reflection. In the end, it wasn't just about making others believe you were the villain. It was about making you believe it too. They leave clues, so you destroy yourself. They never hide everything. That's the most sinister part. They want you to find just enough, to taste the betrayal, to sense the lie, to feel the tremor under the mask. But never the full truth. No, that would end the game too soon. So they leave traces, accidental slips of the tongue, strange inconsistencies, messages half deleted, expressions that don't match their words. These are not mistakes. These are traps, planted deliberately, designed with elegance, because what they truly want is not to be exposed by you, but to watch you unravel yourself in the process of trying. And it works. You begin to chase shadows, retracing every step, rereading every conversation, piecing together moments that never quite added up. You become the detective of your own downfall, losing sleep, losing appetite, losing clarity. They watch you circle the truth like a moth around fire, close enough to burn, but never enough to escape. You accuse, carefully then desperately, but they deny with such poise, such calm hurt in their eyes, that you feel the shame instead. You begin to doubt your sanity. Maybe you're too sensitive, maybe you're overreacting, but deep down you know you were right to feel what you felt. And here's the brilliance. Once you begin to react to the small clues, they use your reaction as the real evidence. "See how paranoid you are," they say. "Look how unstable you've become." And just like that, they shift the spotlight. You're no longer responding to their cruelty. You're now the cause of the chaos. They push you to the edge, hand you the match, and when you finally scream, when you finally light the fire, they step back and say, "Look what you've done." It's psychological warfare, hidden beneath ordinary days and polite smiles. They never needed to attack you outright. They simply cracked your world slowly enough that no one saw it break. And the final cruelty, you'll be the one standing in the wreckage, holding pieces of a story only you remember fully. Everyone else will see you as the problem, the dramatic one, the obsessive one, the one who just couldn't let things go. And they'll be the calm, collected survivor of your supposed storm. That's the final tactic. They don't destroy you with one blow. They hand you the hammer one piece at a time and let you do it yourself. And in the end, when you're left questioning everything, when you no longer trust your instincts or your memory, they walk away clean, untouched, as if they were never there at all, and you're left behind, not just wounded, but rewritten.